Well, just for curiosity's sake, I decided that I would actually continue this test adventure for Little Town. I just wanted to see what happened next in this next scene, see how it would work out, and whether I could link scenes together properly. So where we are is scene 2. It's day 1, but it's the night time. So this is the last element of the first day, really, before we move on to a separate day. As I mentioned in the first video I did on this, there's 6 scenes that make up a game day. So I'm just about to start my journaling of this particular scene here. Okay, so where we left off, if you remember, if you watched the first video on this, this adventure is called Bear Cave, and the main character is Darren Reynolds, who's returned to his old hometown. He's been called back urgently by his family because his younger sister has been kidnapped. And on that point, I should actually mention that one thing I left out of doing the first video was, and quite importantly, is to tell you about the case. You roll up the case on one of the tables in the manual, and the case I rolled up was a person was kidnapped. Quite an important bit of information. I did kind of like mention it and allude to it in the first video, but I didn't clarify the fact that that was the central case issue of the mystery here. Okay, so clarified that the person was kidnapped, and this was his younger sister. At this point, I'm kind of looking upon it as she's missing or has disappeared at this point. It's not clear that this is a kidnapping as such, or won't be clear until it's brought up in the scene. So that's where we are at the moment. And where we left off in the last scene was that Darren had been picked up his father, Jerry, at the bus station. But when Darren tried to question him, his father seemed quite distant, unfriendly, and just didn't want to get into the what had happened. Now Darren had put this down from the backstory that he'd parted company with his family to go to university out of state. They were not pleased with this, and they'd had some sort of family argument about it and a falling out, and so he hasn't seen them in quite a long time. So his father being a little bit off with him, even though he's returned to the town the first time for say a year or more, Darren's put it down to this, the fact that they've had this family fallout. And where I left the scene was they were just getting into the car for Jerry to drive him and Darren to the family home, and that was the end of the scene. So I imagine at this point there's a very uncomfortable ride home. So we've got the next scene sheet here, which we'll start filling in. So let's see, we've upped the time limit, unfortunately, because that first scene didn't go well, really, for Darren. So that it's up to 1 at the moment. We're now in night time. As I say, this is the last element of the game day before switching to a new one. The location. So I've decided that will be the Reynolds home, which I've completely spelt wrong here. There's a Y there. Reynolds home. We'll come to the event in a minute, but time of day, well, it's night as they drive home. The weather, again, foggy. This goes over to this mystery about this thick fog that is enveloping the town of Bear Cave. Sight, well, we'll come to that when we get to the actual home. Sound, again, we'll fill these ones in as we actually enter the family home. All this stuff will be relating to this particular scene, them entering the house. So we'll come to the event. So if we look at the running order of the game, we roll or choose the location, which we've done. It's the Reynolds home. Establish the elements. Well, as I say, I'm not going to do that until they get inside the house, and then I can start making up the scene there. So the next thing is to optionally define a scene element. I think we'll go for that because I really want to try out these mechanisms. I don't really think in this particular scene, because this particular scene, I guess, is going to be a lot of exposition about what's happening with his younger sister. I haven't even given his younger sister a name yet, and so a lot of this will be clarified in this particular scene. But so I don't really need to do a scene event, but I'm kind of curious as to how they will affect this particular scene. So what we'll do is roll up a scene event, and what we need here is 1d6. We've got a 4 plus the time limit, which is a 9, so that's 13. So draw a oh good lord, perhaps I shouldn't have rolled up a scene element here, because what we've got to do is draw up a danger card. But still, we're looking at the mechanisms here and seeing how they affect things. So I guess maybe something has happened while they're driving home. So we'll just see how this turns out and then work from there. Now, if I can remember, dangerous card, which is spades. Okay, so here's our spades suit here. Okay. Draw a card from the dangerous. Yeah, then you don't have to do any more than kind of shuffle these dangerous cards, and hopefully I've already given them a good shuffle, but just in case, we'll give it another little sift through, and then choose a dangerous card. A 3 of spades. 3 of spades is: you're approached by a stranger who advises you to stop the investigation and return the card to the pile and shuffle. Okay, which we'll do in a second. So, what do we do here? I've got 2 options for this particular scene. Either there's a bit of an idea. They're in the car. Okay, there's the car on the way home to the house. Now, this stranger is either going to stop them in the car on the way to the house, or is going to be at the house or visits the house. What am I going to do here? Well, as I say, a lot of this particular scene is going to be an exposition about what is actually going on with the sister, which was going to take place at the house. So do I really want to introduce another character and another element to that particular part of the scene, or am I going to break this scene down to two different sub scenes almost? So I think what I'm going to do is this. Here's how this works out. On the way back to the Reynolds house, Dan and Jerry see some blue flashing lights behind them in the fog. And it's the local sheriff's car. Now, you might remember in the investigation sheet, one of the main characters in this story that we rolled up was the corrupt sheriff. So this is a chance to just give a quick glimpse and introduce this particular character into the story. So the car pulls in and the sheriff gets out of his vehicle and comes across to Jerry's side of the car, asks him to roll down his window, and then sort of just sees what's going on. He's doing a stop for some particular reason, but we don't know why. So let's get this down while we remember it. So On the way home, oh, my writing's getting worse. This is the trouble with working with computers so much. You lose all ability to be able to write properly. On the way home, Jerry's car is pulled over by a sheriff's vehicle. Oops. Is it 2 R's or 2 F's? Stare. Okay. And we're going to guess what happens here. See, this makes it kind of like a bit more complicated because I haven't worked out a lot of these things. What happens in this particular case when you meet an NPC like this? I could actually perhaps look at the cards. Let's have a hot pursuit. No. Investigate, brawl. No. Avoid conflict. That's a possibility. Define a danger. Possibly. Run away from fight. No. Sweet talk. Possibly. Crossfire. That's one of the special rules cards. Yeah. I'm guessing it has to be one of these. So the sheriff gets out of his car, comes up to the side of Jerry's car, in a vehicle stop. Intimidate, definitely not. Definitely not trying to intimidate a sheriff. Particularly if he is this kind of hard ass that it sounds like he is from the original description. You don't want to be doing, and Dan wouldn't do that anyway, because obviously he knows he's a bit of a hard ass, so he won't try and do that. So what we will try and do is avoid conflict, not defy danger, because there's no particular danger at the moment. It's not good that the sheriff's pulled him up, but it might just be routine. So avoid conflict or sweet talk, I think, is what I'm going to go for here. So let's say the sheriff, and we need to give him a name. Okay, names, open questions. Come on. This is where you really need to have all these particular pages. Here we go, names. Okay, first of all, so this is going to be D66. We'll have a family name first of all for the sheriff. 4 and a 4, 4 Moore. So let's get this down. Is it double R, double F? Sheriff's name. This is quite good in a way because this is not how I envisaged this turning out. So it's worthwhile doing, as this is kind of like a practice run through, because I didn't originally envisage this scene just taking place in the house. So this is kind of cool in a way. So the second name is Moore, and first name, male name, would be 5-4 Leo Moore, the sheriff. So this is our baddie, Leo Moore, and he's just doing a kind of routine traffic stop. Maybe he's curious about Darren's passenger. Jerry's passenger, sorry, beg your pardon. Okay, so I can see how this is going to go. We don't want any major conflict at this stage in the story because it's early on, but that justifies this particular stop. It's just a routine traffic stop, and Sheriff Moore is obviously seen them leave the town on the way to down the road to the Reynolds house, and he's seen the passenger, maybe seen him, watch them get off the bus, and is curious about who this person is. And so he's decided to do a little bit of a traffic stop. Comes up to Jerry's side of the car, sort of exchanges pleasantries or whatever, but is really after who's that in the car with you, and sort of Jerry will explain, well, this is my son Darren. He's just returned home, and having satisfied the sheriff's curiosity, you'll want to try and avoid any further questioning from the sheriff about Darren or the events. So I think I'll try this one out. Avoid conflict. Roll 2d6s. Ooh, that's not very good. 5. Plus your presence, which is 0 anyway, plus the non-player character's attitude. Well, that ain't going to be good, because that obviously this sheriff is a little bit hostile, which will mean, and I'm going to have to look this up, I'm afraid. Attitudes. Yeah, I'm sorry about this. There's going to be a lot of to and fro here until I decide on which of the tables are going to be the most useful. Oh, come on. What is it? Ah, here we go. NPC attitudes. I reckon he's unfriendly, which should give him a -1. So, avoid conflict, which would be 2d6, which is 5, plus 0, yeah, plus a -1, which would make it a 4. And what would that be? Somehow you fail to calm down the attacker. Mark with 1 wound. Now, so that makes it kind of like more a physical conflict rather than a verbal conflict. Do I feel that this is kind of relevant? I maybe made the wrong decision on this because I wasn't familiar with the ramifications of using this particular card. Do I feel it's right that you'd mark down a wound? No, because there isn't any sort of physical conflict. I'll just really put this down. I'll use my intuition here and just say that, well, it was useful going through this. I would say that this is not physical conflict. And just put it down to, well, there was some bad feeling this here. The sheriff was just being nosy and a bit of an ass, basically. He's maybe upset Jerry, but no physical harm was come from this. So we'll just end it there. It was just really a little ploy here, just to introduce the sheriff, really. And obviously he's got on the bad side of both Jerry. I was probably already on the bad side of Jerry, but he's introduced himself now to Darren, and Darren now knows that this guy's a bit of an ass. And we'll leave it there. The sheriff, having satisfied his curiosity about who was in the car with Darren, sort of like wishes them a good night, safe journey, and lets them carry on. So we'll have that first bit of their ending and move on to the, I'll write a little note about that later, and the main bit will take place in the Reynolds house, which is the main point of the scene. As I say, I could have got away without doing any of that at all. Really, that was a case of me just wanting to try out all the kind of mechanics of this. So I wanted to try that scene event. We could have done away with this, but I guess from the positive point of view here, Dan has now met the sheriff, Sheriff Moore, which is a good thing as far as the investigation's going, because later on, as we may find out, they'll be presumably coming to loggerheads, maybe. So that was really just setting up that, introducing that character. So let's get to the Reynolds house. Jerry and Danny and Darren get to the Reynolds house. Dan is hoping that he'll get a little bit more information from who is at this house, mainly his mother. Now, I originally said in the first scene that Dan was going to meet his ex-girlfriend, or his old girlfriend, I should put it, Monica. Do I want her at the house at this stage? No, because that might make it a bit more complicated, and it's already getting a little bit more complicated having met the sheriff already. So he's going to meet just one NPC at the house, and that NPC is his mother, who we're going to have to roll up a name for. You can see how much kind of like paperwork is involved here, or clerical work, really, I guess. So we'll get back over here to the yellows. Is it yellows? No, it's just past the yellows. It's the greens names. At least I tag that one, and I'll just have to remember what my tags are. So we need a female name. It's a D66 again. 35. Norma Reynolds. The only thing about this being based on Twin Peaks is a lot of these names are derived from the show Twin Peaks. So it's like the sheriff is Leo and the mother is Norma. So I wonder if I should at some point drop my own little table of names that are not related to Twin Peaks, because it's all a bit on the nose that you come. I've chosen two names here on this particular scene, and are both from the original Twin Peaks show. So that may be something I might change for the next adventure I do. I'll create another sheet of names totally unrelated to Twin Peaks. I know that, names are just names, but these are a little bit too on the nose. So here we go. Darren meets his mother, Norma. Now, as we had in the previous scene, Jerry was very unfriendly and very cold towards Darren. Again, I'll just repeat that Dan put that down to the fact that they parted company in sort of under a cloud, really, because he'd left to go to university, which his father hadn't want. In fact, neither of his parents had wanted him to leave the town. So they'd had a little bit of a falling out, probably a big family row. Dan had left to go to university, and in the meantime, he kind of become a bit estranged from his father. He'd kept in contact with both his girlfriend, Monica, and his mother, and he kept on good terms with them. So I foresee a bit better reunion with his mother than Darren had had with his father in the previous scene. So again, we'll try what we tried with his father, which was to try and interrogate them. Let's have a look. Push the lock, reveal the secret fight. Oh, that's a special card, sorry, I beg your pardon. Interrogate, which is the nearest thing I can think is relevant, because he's Darren's going to be questioning his mother about the everything that's going on. So we'll put that aside to there at the moment, and we'll finish off filling out the scene elements, because now he's home, and I kind of like, I'll put more familiar sights, because one of the elements of the first scene was that Darren had come into the bus station of Bear Cave. We'd had this thick fog, and everything was looking rather strange and unfamiliar to him. And so getting home, he's now on firmer ground. He feels, he feels more comfortable now. This is the house he remembers, rather than the town where he felt that was something really weird and strange. Plus, he'd had that very strange episode in the bus station where he saw that strange picture. So he's very unnerved by the whole experience of getting home. But now he gets back to his house, his family home, and he feels on firmer ground here. It's a little bit more comforting and familiar. So all the sights and sounds are sights and sounds that he remembers from growing up in this particular house. And nothing particularly unnerving about this. He relaxes a bit more, he feels more comfortable, and he feels, unlike the episode with his father, that he feels a bit more welcome by his mother, and obviously the embrace, and she's over the moon to see him back, but obviously she's upset about the situation with his sister. But now Darren really wants to cut to the chase and find out what has gone on, what's happened with his sister. And as I say, that is where the interrogation comes in. So let's have a look at this. We roll 2d6s. Oh, please make it a good roll this time. Please make it a good roll. Not bad. Okay, so let's have a go at this. So Darren questions mother. And that's interrogate. Which will be 2d6, which equals 8. A little bit better of a roll. Plus his presence, which unfortunately, as we know now, is 0. Damn. Plus the NPC attitude. Now, here we've got a positive for a change, because, as I said, his mother is a lot more pleased to see him. So we will put that down to being... Oh, come on. Now I'm going to have to mark this table, because obviously this is going to become... Here we go. NPC attitude, and she is somewhere between friendly and helpful. I wouldn't say she was altogether helpful, because I've got this idea that there's maybe something going on with his parents, and his father already having not been very helpful at all, will not be too pleased if then the mother blurts out everything that's happened. So she's definitely friendly, but I wouldn't say she's friendly. Can I half that and go for a 2? Friendly is the modifier is 1. helpful, the modifier is 3. So I want to give that kind of impression that she's holding back something. She wants to tell him what's going off, but she's holding back something. I'll just go for friendly, okay? Because she's obviously, there's something going on here. So what's that? That gives me a 9. That's a bit better. That's not too bad. Let's have a look here. Okay, no, I should have made it that +2, and then that would take me into 10, and then I could have asked her specifically a yes or no question to determine if the person has valuable information. Damn, I should have done that. But anyway, you live and learn. Okay, still not too bad, because 7 to 9, the person shares a rumor with you. Ha ha ha. So I've got to look up a rumor, I guess. So the mother, who I've decided is Norma, in bringing Darren up to speed. Shares a rumor. Okay, there we go. Pop that back in here. Rumors. Now there is a table for that. Well, there's a table for everything, to be perfectly honest. And this is kind of cool, because this may offer me a way. Here we go. Rumors. This may offer me a good way to end this particular scene. Darren finding out something solid for a change, unlike the previous scene, so we might be able to end this scene positively. Right, so let's have a look. On the rumors table, you roll 2d6s. Oh, for crying out loud. My rolls are horrendous. 2. Okay. This is, oh God, I'll have to read you this one. A new drug allows its users to project their consciousness through time. Pretty weird. But it turns them into dangerous psychopaths. So, okay, let's put this into context of the story that I'm telling here. So Norma is filling in Darren with all the backstory, that indeed his sister has been kidnapped and is not just missing. She starts relating to Darren some of the things that have been going wrong in Bear Cave recently, including how it's gone downhill since he's left. There's been the introduction of drugs into the town, with the kind of hint here that has his sister been using drugs. Yeah, this is going somewhere. This is what I'll have to note down here, but I'm just composing at the moment. So she kind of sadly relates that, and this is possibly why his father didn't want to talk about it, that there's been drug use introduced into the town. That the sheriff, who they're none too pleased with, has not been able to deal with this drug problem. I won't go as far as to say that he is in some way linked to the introduction of these drugs, but there's been cases of these drugs then causing people to become violent and commit violent crimes. Okay, now I'll have to clarify that. I'll work in my journal about that, I'll come up with a tangible story, which I will, once I've composed it, I'll then introduce that before the next scene. So thus far, Dan has finally learnt something of particular interest that may be related to the disappearance of his sister, this growth in drug use within the town, particularly amongst the town's younger people, which may or may not include his sister. How is this connected? The use of these drugs which have been introduced. How's this related to his sister's disappearance? Was she using drugs? Was she buying drugs? Did she know someone who was responsible for the dissemination of the drugs in the town? And has she been taken by them, or is being held by them? There's something going on here, but I think we've actually managed to get somewhere here, and I think we can actually, I'll write down all my notes in a clear manner here, which I'll recap when we come to the next episode. But in the meantime here, we'll say end scene, and I now have to decide, has this been a positive scene? Well, yes, Dan has finally learnt something concrete about the case. It's quite positive from the point of view of an investigation. He now has a clue as to what has gone on. So I'll put this down as a positive. So we'll reduce this game timelet from 9 back down to 8 again, because I feel we're actually getting somewhere. And off camera, I will write down my notes. So there we go. Scene 2. Dan has got home now to his family home, and his mother has actually related on some of the strange things that have been going on in this particular town. Actually, I should not forget, that's not the only positive thing that's actually happened in this particular scene, because leading up to the main scene in the house, Dan has actually got a chance to meet what is probably one of the key protagonists in the story, this Sheriff Moore, and has got a very, very clear idea that this sheriff is not a very nice person at all. Someone probably to be avoided if possible. So there's a couple of good things happened about this scene. So I feel right in making it a positive end here, and now Darren can sit and go to bed on the night time, mulling over all this information that his mother has told him about his sister has definitely been taken, and it may be tied in to this problem they're having in the town with this introduction of this drug. Okay, I'll get down to doing the paperwork, and we'll come back again when I'm ready to do the next scene, which will be on day 2 of this adventure in Bear Cave. Okay, thanks.